Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to another Breaking into Data session. Today, as we've all been talking about, we're going to be discussing insights, what that means, why they're so important, and more importantly, how do you get there? How do you go from collecting that raw data, whether it's surveys, something else about your potential customers, or anything else, and turning that into something your business, your company can actually use to make decisions. Before that, a couple of announcements. So I'm Aaron Falus, founder and CEO of Promotable. And what do we do? We do close the data skills gap. So we help you exercise all of those data muscles. Ultimately, we want to help you get that first data job. And so we do that through a variety of things. One of them are events just like these, where we bring data science and analytics, and of course insights, experts and practitioners, more importantly, people who do it every single day, to share with you their experience and their insights, so that, no pun intended, so that they can help you get that, jump across that last hurdle and really just make better decisions, get that better opportunity going forward. In addition to that, of course, we also have our courses for non-technical folks who want to add data to their toolkit. Data for Business course. Next one is starting in the first week of November. Feel free to reach out if anyone's interested. Again, those are taught by practitioners, just like our speakers. And then really excited for next year, we're launching a new product to help folks who are looking to get that first data job out of their boot camp or master's degree. We've put together a full package of mentors, projects with our partner companies, all kinds of other stuff. So if anyone's interested in that, feel free to reach out. There'll be a full announcement down the road. Lastly, going forward, we're all on LinkedIn here. Most of our events will be here. So please give us a follow, and then also check out, we have 2 new events that got posted just today. One, we've got someone from Spotify, and the next one, we've got someone from Policy Genius, who's the VP over at Plated. So really cool people. There's more coming up, but check that out there. And last thing, we are looking for someone to help organize events just like these. If that's something that you're interested in, definitely reach out to me after the event. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn or send me an email. With that, sorry for the extra long one today, but really excited to introduce Marty Seward. I really hope I'm pronouncing that right. I should have asked earlier. Awesome. But he's got super deep experience across the board in insights, in particular with consumer goods, but Nielsen, Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch, Instacart, lots of other ones. So really excited to chat about, of course, your background, and then help us all understand what are insights, what do we do with them, how do we get them, and why do we care?
Great. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Aaron. I consider this to be a real privilege to be able to share some of my thoughts, and I appreciate it. So I got my start in marketing research data through a very circuitous route. I actually was in Navy ROTC in college and spent 4 years in the Navy. Was in the first Gulf War, and didn't really know what I wanted to do after that. But after a few jobs, it led me back to, I had a friend who was in consumer packaged goods. She became a brand manager after college. And it just, for some reason, I just really thought her job was cool. And so I wanted to get into brand management initially. But I first had to take a few steps. So I got a job with Dole Food Company. I actually was working in bananas. So if you'd like to know anything about bananas and how to ripen bananas, I'm your guy, because I did that for a year and a half. And then I moved over and I got my first research job, and that was working on the packaged goods side of Dole. And I had my own mentor from Nielsen who helped me along. And so if you're looking to get a job in the insights area, for me, what I did is I got as close as I could getting to Dole, and then made the internal transfer. And it was just a matter of time and patience. From there, I moved to Nielsen, and I was with Nielsen for about 3 years before I jumped over to the internet. So this was in the first internet boom. That was really interesting, to be able to be on the ground floor, really, of something, an industry that was just beginning to understand how to operate. And then, unfortunately, we didn't make it. But I was able to land back at Nielsen and move around in different types comprehensive analytic role. So previously I was working with syndicated data, working on site at Nestle across their businesses. Then when I came back, I was able to move into a panel analytics role, and became a panel specialist, and really made my way up the ranks there, and then started moving into different roles within Nielsen. So that ended in 2017, and then I went to Anheuser-Busch's global director of Shopper Insights, which was a lot of fun working with beer, and I learned a lot. That ended in 2017. I went to. I'm sorry. I think I was getting a little feedback.
Of course.
And then from Anheuser-Busch, I moved to Instacart. I wanted to get in on the ground floor of a company that was just building its insights team. So when I joined, I think I was about the 9th or 10th person joining the insights team. Now we're up to almost 40. And it's been really cool working with a company that's growing, working in an area where we're developing the analytics every day. We've got a long way to go in terms of the overall analytic plan, building out different capabilities. But we're
getting a little bit of feedback, or it sounds kind of choppy on your end.
Okay, I'll move in a little bit and hopefully
much better.
Okay, so it's been really fun working with a group of people, building the analytics, building the capabilities, and as we develop the platform, new ad products, new ways for people to shop and buy new services, like our just convenience center, just helping our customers.
Same thing. If you want to just, I don't know, maybe scoot forward a little bit, or I'm going to get close to your mic. Sorry, it just sounds like you're on like speakerphone kind of far away.
Oh, sorry about that. Is this better?
Much better.
Okay. Yeah, my apartment's probably a little too big for this. I've been working at Instacart since January, working with the team, helping our customers to understand their performance on the site, and giving them recommendations on how to do better.
Excellent. And so, how to do better? What does that mean? Better in what way?
Well, it depends on their KPIs. So different companies have different objectives, but usually it's to grow sales and share at the same time. It's not necessarily helpful to grow share if you're a category leader,
Mm-hmm.
Category declining. So sometimes it's about growing the category, because as category leader, you want to ensure that your category continues to grow. And it's also about optimizing your own share, and optimizing campaigns, especially as we launch new ad products. You think about that funnel, starting with just attracting people and getting them to notice you, all the way through to the purchase. So we're working with our customers every step of the way to help get them to convert, and to do so in a way that is as efficient as possible, which means testing and learning sometimes, and building that knowledge base with the customers. Got
it. So let's take a step back a little bit and walk me through, how do you get to that process of helping someone, whether that's growing market share or optimizing it? Where do we start? How do we start getting that information? And then what do you do? Like where do you sit in this whole process?
Well, I work closely with, I work with a cross-functional team on a set of clients, some very big, some not as big. The business issues are generally raised by the clients or by our sales leads, and they feed back to us. I have weekly check-ins with everybody that I work directly with to understand what's on the plate for the clients, what are they looking for. It's pretty amazing. When I was at Anheuser-Busch, the annual brand planning process takes anywhere from 4 to 6 months, and it's online, we're going quarter to quarter with most clients because things change. Things are changing all the time.
Fair enough. So then from there, kind of what's the, this is kind of a weird statement, right? What's the difference between, when someone says, hey, look at my data versus like, I have something that, like, how do you know that a fact or a piece of data is valuable for a company?
Good question. I would say that there's a lot of data. There's a lot of facts out there. Facts in and of themselves don't have any interpretation. So they're in the context that I work in. They're usually indices or numbers, and so it's important to understand that when you move from a fact to an insight to me is an interpretation of a fact or multiple facts that allows you to make a business decision. And so if I'm not enabling my partners internally and the customers that I work with, if I'm not enabling them to make decisions, then I'm just providing them data.
Got it. And so from there, who are like the stakeholders you work for? Are they typically, is it on the marketing side, or is there are you kind of agnostic across the board? And like, how do you take those questions and how do you know that they're asking even the right questions?
Yeah. So the way that most companies are structured that we work with, it is marketing people. So it's not, when I was at Anheuser-Busch and I was leading shopper insights there, I was working with the sales and category management teams. So e-commerce and sales and category management haven't really come together yet. So e-commerce mostly in the companies that we work with, which are bigger companies with larger marketing and sales organizations. So we're working with the marketing side, and a lot of times they're agencies. So it's important to be open. It's important to make sure that you understand who the stakeholders are and to validate. So I know that our sales folks sometimes get questions from agencies that they want to validate with the customers to ensure that the goals are aligned. But by and large, everybody's rowing in the same direction, and there's it's sometimes the questions really require a lot of thought about how we can answer them, and sometimes we just can't. We have restrictions on what we can share based on our retailer agreements, and what I would say is we're going to get there eventually. I think to provide the full suite of things for our clients, but in the meantime, it's about continuing to push the boundaries internally as we develop our own analytic dashboards and our analytic tools. So the major tools I see a question.
Yeah, exactly.
I myself use Tableau a ton. I used desktop Tableau. That's what our team utilizes. I think it's an incredibly flexible data retrieval tool. Again, it's data retrieval, and you have to string together the story from the hypothesis or to address the questions. So that's primarily what I work in, but we have several other platforms depending on the team that you're dealing with. So I know our catalog team works with a different set of tools. Our corporate research people, they do traditional type of survey research, etc. And so it really depends on the function. But I can say that for myself, I work with primarily in Tableau.
Interesting. And one of the things that maybe don't know enough about the role, but for me, insight seems like the kind of role is. So for some background, there's a lot of folks in our community who are trying to get into that first data role, and a lot of times they'll have really good experience, deep experience in whether it could be in marketing, could be in product, could be in finance, could be lots of other places, and they're trying to find that first kind of step in the door. Is insights the kind of place, the kind of role, depending on the company, that you think would be a good first step for someone who has domain expertise and then has added SQL, Tableau, that kind of stuff to their toolkit?
Absolutely. I think, one of the things I really appreciate about Instacart and, the team that has, the insights team that we have and are growing is we have such a diverse set of backgrounds. We have people who've come from agencies. We have people who've come from Nielsen, like myself. We have people who have grown up just and worked only on .coms, in e-commerce and such. And people, I just appreciate the diversity of backgrounds and people. There are some people on our insights team who had never worked in insights before. Actually, we have a fair number of them, but they're great. And it's about taking advantage of the internal tools that we have and the internal training, and then just not being afraid to ask questions, reaching out to people. There really is no such thing as a stupid question when you're trying to figure out how to get something done, how to answer a question for your client. And sometimes, most of the time, I find that collaborating with other people internally on the team, bouncing things off not just my insights team, but my cross-functional team, the sales folks, the account managers who manage the ad campaigns on a daily basis. It's just really productive to share what I'm finding and where I think this is going. And sometimes the hypothesis and the story change completely. So that's what you get out of collaboration. I think that's where the best insights come from, is from collaborating.
So we've got a pretty specific question, so I'm not sure if you're able to dive into it, but he's asking if you use modeling to figure out when slots are going to fill up or optimize for busyness.
It's a good question. I can't talk about that.
Yeah, fair enough. Tell me a little bit more about what do you think? Because obviously you've been doing this a long time, right? Across a bunch of different companies. Are there a couple of baseline skills that you think you absolutely have to be in insights? And then on top of that, what are the things when you're looking at more junior candidates, those folks on your team who are they've never worked in insights, but they're killing it, they're doing well. What are the things that I don't know, the things that kind of make that happen? Oops.
Yeah, I think that, if you want to be successful in insights, you have to be, first, what I just talked about. I think you have to have a collaborative mindset. It is never just about you. It's about your company. It's about your team. Mm-hmm. And I think that you have to have a natural curiosity. And because the best, or, I'm not going to say the best, but there are questions, there are problems that you have to attack that just require iteration. And sometimes it's a little bit of trial and error in terms of, okay, if I look at the data this way and I have this other set of data over here, am I seeing a correlation? Am I seeing something that might explain what's going on? So it's that openness and that willingness to dig in and not be afraid to, go through that iterative process, because not every time you pull the data, you're going to get what you want. And it's, it's a matter of just keeping at it. I would say the other thing is that makes people really successful in insights is the ability to tell a story. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of the things that I do with clients. It's not just one-off little ad hoc questions. It is, I mentioned before, we're working with clients on a quarter basis to help them, fine tune and adjust their strategy. When we do that, we're coming together as a cross-functional team. Everybody has their own roles. We are tying it together as a story for our clients to say, okay, you did this and this happened, and we see some competitive activity. We see this. So just kind of putting together that story that helps the client to understand the dynamics of what happened and make recommendations. You can't be afraid to make recommendations. They don't have to take them. We should not be afraid to make recommendations based on what we see and what we know about shopping on Instacart.
A couple of follow-ups. Other folks have questions. Feel free to drop them in. Apologies with the LinkedIn issue. The stream didn't launch to LinkedIn, so it only went onto YouTube. So we've got some folks who are in. But while I have you, primarily, when we talk about clients, are your stakeholders, and feel free to just say pass if you can't answer, but is it primarily working just within Instacart stakeholders, or are you also talking to, I don't know, Kroger and saying, hey, here's your products, here's how we help you become more successful?
Well, I work on the manufacturer side. We do have a retail team that works specifically with retailers. Retailers have different questions. Yeah. And honestly, most of the time, retailers don't give a crap about a brand performance. They're looking at the category performance. And so the lens that you have to apply day in and day out at a retailer is just different than it is with brand manufacturers. So, I work with a manufacturer team, like I said, focused on, I would say, companies that are. I work primarily with snacks and beverages companies, and there's a ton of them out there, and there's a ton of competition. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting. Can
you share like a high level, like maybe an example of some typical questions that get asked?
Sure.
To dive into.
Yeah. So we get questions. Since we're pre-IPO, we get a lot of questions that we can't answer. But it's really about, okay, I would say for me, as I've been working with clients, it is getting to the point where they can come back to me and ask questions because they now know what our capabilities are. And so now it's, I look at overall performance on the site. Benchmarks, is a huge deal. We answer questions around campaign specific performance, and I partner with people to do that. And now it's becoming, whereas before it was a lot more, like when I started in January, this is how fast things evolved. When I started in January, it was, I was month to month or even week to week, as people were asking questions because you don't know what you don't know. And so there's, we were all kind of in the same boat. Now, at customers, as we, have exposed them to different analyses or sets of analytics that we can do on an ongoing basis, they are asking specifically for that. So it's been, a learning process for all of us. And, we just really look at it as a partnership.
Yeah, well, I like that you framed it as a learning process, because my next question for you, I know we have a couple of questions in the comments to get to as well, but how frequently are the questions that you get asked like the wrong questions, if that makes sense? Not the wrong questions, but when they're like, hey, how do we get more revenue? And you're like, actually, what you really want is the outlier, or like,
I can't put a percentage on it, but you get those questions a lot, right? It's like, okay, well, how do we do this, and how do we do this without spending more money? And sometimes, depending on the client, you just have to be patient and walk them through it, what the reality of the situation is. Advertising on Instacart is getting more competitive. So it's about. And we are here to help you be most efficient in terms of your cost per click. But, most of the questions that we get aren't necessarily the wrong questions. It's sometimes, though, difficult to give them exactly what we want, because we're not necessarily in the position to do that. So recently I worked on a question around lifetime value. And so what we look at it is in terms of lifetime value, and we work with our clients to quantify that. But the cost of acquisition, they were asking questions that basically were leading to profitability and margin questions. And we don't have any, we just don't have any visibility into that. And
you
so
can answer that question for them. That's their business, right? They're the ones who know their margins. Yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those things where I see this a lot where like, had previous conversations here, and obviously privately, and one of the bigger pain points that I get from people who work in anything that's data adjacent, not just the data analysts, but even the folks who are in marketing, where they're like, my stakeholders asked me this question, and I'm like, I don't even think it's a question I could bring to my data. They're like, what do I do with this? Because it's not specific enough, or there's not a KPI attached to it. And so it's like there's that learning process. We've got this question in the comments here. Natalia asked, just in general, kind of how do you recommend someone who is in a junior position, kind of those first few months? Obviously, you haven't been at Instacart that long, so I'm sure you can have some experience just kind of ramping up. But I think a better example might be from some of those folks who are a little bit more junior on your team. Like, what do they do to like level up quickly?
It's a lot of it is I'm going to put it into two general buckets here. The first one is roll up your sleeves, take advantage of and dig in and take advantage of the training that's there. Get to know the tools that you're going to be utilizing. I did not use Tableau before I came into this role here. And so there were a lot of things that I just didn't know. And, Slack is a much more efficient way than going through the Tableau training videos to figure things out. So it's an opportunity not just to help you do your job better, but also to, meet, get to know your coworkers better. So that's just, I think that's table stakes.
Yeah.
The second is is communication. It's about the back and forth communication. It's making sure that if you're unsure, that you're working towards the goal that the customer wants. It's important that you reach out and communicate. The worst. When I first started out, I would deliver things that I would think that the client wants on a proactive basis, because maybe I just had a little extra time, or I thought something was interesting, and because I didn't talk to the client and really understand what their key priorities were, it just landed with a thud. So
doing work, working harder but not smart.
Mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Be sure you correct them when you recognize them, and if you're unsure, have somebody double check your work. That's just a good practice for anyone to do day in and day out.
Awesome. So you mentioned you're new to Tableau. What were you using before? Was it like an internal tool, or were you more like a Power BI guy?
Well, at Anheuser-Busch developed a lot of its own tools and dashboards.
They're also a huge company, so they can do that.
Yeah, and we license data from both Nielsen, IRI, and Numerator as well.
So we had someone from there a couple months ago.
Oh, cool. I know a lot of people who work there. Yeah.
Her name was Kirsten, I want to say. I have to go back and make sure I'm not just naming a random person here, but
yeah. Let's see. So yeah, that's Anheuser-Busch was mostly internal. Nielsen, it was, of course, Nielsen's proprietary tools. We were just beginning to get into MicroStrategy, data visualization, and that kind of stuff. And Nielsen had developed their own platforms as well. So I tend to find that there's a lot of similarities between platforms if you know how to pull the data.
Yeah.
If you've worked in a multi-dimensional database, then it's just about learning what this new setup is all about. And I'm sure there's a ton of things about Tableau that I haven't tapped into yet. But right now, I find it an incredibly useful tool.
Yeah, no, and I mean, Tableau is great. That's what we teach. But obviously, there's so many others. Power BI gets the job done. You get it for free. Don't pay for Tableau. I think Tableau's pretty, and I think it's a little cleaner and better. But I mean, but I mean, I use like Chart.io. There's so many of them.
Yeah.
Like where you're at, and there's going to be new ones that come out as well. Although if you're a Salesforce customer, you're going to be pushed on Tableau, I'm sure.
Makes sense.
I mean, yeah, is what it is. No, but that's interesting. We have a question that maybe I think too specific probably to talk about. Maybe in generalities, if we can talk about like what are like some typical when we say like what's an actionable insight, like an actionable like outcome. Would you be able to give like examples of stuff? Maybe not from Instacart, but even from like past company work. I think the goal really is just to connect the stuff we're talking about in generalities with like something that sounds more concrete.
Sure. I'm going to refrain from talking about Instacart.
That's totally fine.
We've got some case studies and a blog out there if people want to take a look at that.
Yeah.
When I was at Anheuser-Busch, they were looking to potentially invest in a new packaging machine for one of their brands. And the question was, would it be worth it? So this was a really interesting question to get. And, at the end of the day, what we ended up doing was they could have just made the evaluation, made some assumptions based off of, survey data or discrete choice, that kind of stuff. But it was such a big investment that they wanted some really solid data to understand it. And so I don't know that they went through with it because COVID happened, but it was really cool packaging for the brand. And the question was, we had to figure out was it going to help the brand be noticed more on the shelf? Because, if finding your beer in a store right now, a typical store is like a game of Where's Waldo. So we wanted to understand if consumers liked it, noticed it more, and if they liked it because it's a very different kind of a package, and if there were going to be any issues with the package. So we could have just settled for doing some in-store intercepts and that sort of thing. But what we did is we worked with our loyalty insights partner, which and Safeway, so it would be Symphony. And we did a controlled store test. We chose the stores. We worked with Safeway to ensure that everything was changed over on the right date. So we used a combination of in-store intercepts and then follow-ups with some of those folks and video diaries, along with sales data lift to understand if there was going to be a real lift for the new package. And what we found was, individually, we could have drawn conclusions from each one of these individual pieces of data. But when we strung them together, the insights were actually amazing. Like, we could have just made the decision if we wanted to offer the sales lift data, which, a lot of times is what's done. Mm-hmm. But what we discovered was that actually, yes, shoppers did notice the package, but we would have to make regular store visits because, it's all different. Half the time the package was turned sideways, and so in order to get more packs of beer on the shelf, and so it didn't pop out as much. So we needed to improve the brand, if you will, the brand visibility on the side of the package. And then what we found out was that people we found that people wanted to the package actually had a lot of utility, and that as we put it on the shelf and as it was designed originally, it was they liked it, but it didn't have the utility afterwards because there was not going to be a handle for them to tote the beer around. So it wasn't as good in the fridge. It wasn't as good because even if they were bringing beer to a friend, we for a party occasion, they would pregame. They'd always drink one or two before they bring it over to their friends. And so we were actually able to, I think, avoid avoid implementing a package change that wouldn't have been as optimal had we not strung together all these different insights and really understood the entire shopping experience from just walking by it in the store to how people interact with it at home. So it was stringing together those insights and putting it together to really kind of tell the story of from shelf to consumption.
Which is super interesting because there's, you don't think about all the little tiny things about because I think oftentimes the errors I think you see in data is they'll go through, they'll read it once, right? They'll say, for example, when you said, oh, most of the time the package gets turned, most people are going to skip over that, right? It's that's something that is really insightful, tells you a lot because don't get me wrong, the data, it could have been fine, right? You could have learned something, but you don't really know, right?
Right.
So being able to actually pick up on that, that's something that is, potentially could have saved the day. Who knows? But no, super interesting. I think that's all the questions that we have. So I think we're gonna end it here. But this has been a really fascinating conversation, at least for me personally. I think we had some great questions come in. So with that, thanks everyone for listening, for of course being flexible and joining here on YouTube. Definitely would appreciate a like and a follow. And then I will see you next time. Again, we've got a few more events coming up, so I'll see you every week. And with that, thanks for coming.